everyone, it's Niki Shelton with Keeping It Real, and I'm with Kerri Selby with Fairway Mortgage. Kerri, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Glad to hear you're doing well.
Yeah, it's I've been hearing you guys have a lot of rain or doing some flooding there in Washington.
Yes.
Hopefully everybody's been saying somewhat dry inside maybe and keeping it hopefully everybody's property's doing okay. I know last time we had a king tide, it was got kind of scary there by the shoreline.
Oh, yeah. Well, right in front of my office, we flooded. I came into work one day and the water was past the doors on my car.
Wow.
It was pretty deep. So very scary.
Yeah. I've been kind of wondering about that. So yeah. Here on the other hand, it's been cold, but it's like 60 degrees today and the sun's shining. See the sun?
I see the sun shining down on you. And actually, with having the rain come in, we were actually at 55 degrees yesterday, but it's just not fun to be out there.
Yeah, no. I actually went for a walk this morning. It was cold. It was very cold. It was like 30 degrees, but
wow.
It was sun was shining down and my cheeks got a little rosy, but that's okay.
Nice.
So we are going to do a talk today, and well, before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit about what's on the rates, because the rates are some exciting things, because we're finally going in the direction for people who are getting ready to buy a house. It's a good thing. So let's talk about the good stuff.
I finally, when I get the alert in the morning of what the bond market opened up at, I don't cry anymore. I've actually been happy to look at it because there's some positive numbers. So it's been really nice to wake up and see at 6 o'clock in the morning that it's a good news message on my phone. But we have definitely seen some improvement. And a lot of that had to do with the ADP report that came out today. The jobs report is coming out tomorrow, so they didn't see as much improvement as they were forecasting because they're still hesitating a little bit, waiting to see what the jobs numbers are tomorrow. But they did see some decline in jobs, especially the leisure and travel industry, because this time of the year, I mean, after Christmas and everything, of course, travel really starts to slow down. And so we had seen an influx of employment in those areas because during COVID, there weren't a lot of people in those jobs. So there was a mass hiring, which inflated numbers, but now there's starting to be some layoffs. Yeah.
And I mean, and like what we talked about before too, I said, it's just the prices of everything have went up so drastically. I mean, I know that, I've even cut back going out a lot just because of the fact that, money's getting tighter. It's like, you're not, so you're not able to do that as much. So that really makes sense with the fact that it's a service industry. Fortunately, I have a lot of people in the service industry that are friends and stuff. So definitely get out and support your businesses. There's small businesses, they need that support. But, and best wishes to all those guys. And hopefully that continues and, it picks up for them too. But it is a good thing if you're in the housing thing and you're trying to get into your first home. So
yeah, so we did see a definite decrease in rates this week, and we're now about 0.75% higher than we were this time last year. And funny enough, they started to see an influx of refinances. A lot of people are refinancing because they've accumulated so much credit card debt and other types of debt that they're starting to pull equity from their home because it's going to cost them more over time to keep those credit card bills than it would be to refinance at a higher rate than they currently have. So, and it's always easy just to do a rate and term refinance once the rates do get lower. But if it is your bottom line that you're looking for and your output of, say right now you're putting out your mortgage plus an additional $1,000 to $1,200 a month in bills. Well, what if you could cut that in half and only be paying $600 and add that to your mortgage and then have $600 left in your budget? That's huge right now to people. So take a look at it. It's never a bad thing to research it and to see if it's a good fit. We have tools that can calculate it for you and show you what that looks like before you make any major decision.
When I was younger, we did use credit cards a lot because, we had kids and it just seemed like, I wasn't as smart as back then as I am now about not using them. But, we did do that. And it worked out pretty well because it did help cut those payments down and stuff like that. So the best thing is not to use those credit cards. Except for unless you're going to pay them off every month, because that's the best. But at least that's an option for, if you do kind of get in the upside down thing or, spending more than what you need to or something, it is a good way to kind of get out of that. So good point. All right. So let's talk about, because we're kind of leading into that. So we're kind of talking about our credit, right?
Yes, we are.
So let's go ahead and, we're talking about, people again, it's people are starting to talk about getting back out in the market and start buying again, right? I mean, I know you've been hearing that. I've been hearing that. And they've been kind of waiting for those rates to come down. And now they're coming down. And what's going to happen, Kerri?
The market's going to become competitive again because everybody's been waiting for the rates to drop.
Right. They have been. And, we kept saying, you might want to do it now before it happens, because then you can always refinance later. I mean, because we've been kind of saying that for a while. I mean, they had the phrase going around, like, date the rate, but marry the
house.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
And so that's kind of possibly what might be coming up. I mean, we obviously don't have a crystal ball. We can't tell that, but just with the trends and looking at past years and the numbers and stuff like that, you can kind of see how it kind of does this pattern. So, with what's happening and stuff like that, it looks like, it's Christmas season. It's the market typically slows down anyway. And then once you get spring, it bounces right back up. And if the rates are following suit with that, and it's going down again, I think it might be a really busy, spring again. So
that's what we're forecasting and keeping our fingers crossed will happen for sure. We need to see a boost in our industry.
Perfect. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So we talked about, like using your home as far as, bringing some down those credit card debts and stuff like that, getting some extra cash that way. But let's just dig into the credit, because I mean, that is such a huge thing. I mean, when a buyer first comes and sees me, my first questions, I mean, other than kind of getting to know them, is what is, have you been pre-approved? I mean, because you need that before you can really do anything else. So before they can get pre-approved, though, they need to have your credit score run, right, Kerri?
Yes, they do. And sometimes it's really scary. But then other times people wind up having higher credit than they think. But what really makes up a credit score? Well, it's just a numerical representation of your entire credit history, showing what your credit worthiness is, what your ability to repay your debt is. And we use these scores to evaluate the risk of lending money to you, because if we're going to loan you $400,000, $500,000, we want to make sure that it's going to get paid back.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I know like on my account, or I have a bank, BCU is my bank. And I know on my app, even I can go in there and check out my FICO score and stuff like that. So I'm usually watching because I like to make sure it's up really high. So.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. And the thing that you have to consider too when you're shopping for a mortgage is what shows up on your BECU or Experian or Credit Karma is not the same formulation that we use to predict or to evaluate what your mortgage score is. We take more into consideration when it comes to a mortgage credit pull. So it's often a little bit lower than what you'll see on one of your apps.
Right.
So
and
take that
usually
into
you use all three of them too, correct? You usually use all three of them okay.
Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion.
Right. So even though you're just getting one thing, it's like, they're pulling from all different ones. Okay. So let's see if I can do this. All right. So let's talk about some credit score facts, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting because people don't realize the breakdown of credit. Most people think everything has to do with if you have late payments on your credit report, but actually it's your payment history. They're really looking at how you've been at paying your payments. Are you paying them on time? Do you have lates? A big part that we've talked about in the past too, the next biggest is your utilization of your credit. Like you said, use your credit to buy things that you can afford to pay off at the end of the next billing cycle. Using 90% of your credit is going to make you have a horrible credit score. Even though you make payments on time, if you're using up more than 35 to 40% of your credit cards, your score is going to automatically length of history. So for people that are new to credit and they're building it, we actually often will tell them, well, does mom and dad have a credit card or a spouse have a credit card that they've had for a long period of time? Because if so, they can add that person as an authorized user and boost their credit score almost immediately. It helps a lot. And you just have to prove that the person who is the main user of the card makes those payments monthly.
Hey, I think you said in the past, one of the past things that you had did that with your son when he was just kind of getting started out.
Yes. I added
Yeah.
him as an authorized user on 2
So,
cards.
so do you still have him as an authorized user, or are you able to take him off after a certain period of time? And does that affect their credit then? I was always
So I
curious about
haven't taken him off yet because the more lines of credit that you have, the better it is for maintaining your credit score or increasing it as well. So he did get his own credit card, but I've kept those open because until he goes and seeks a mortgage, it's important for him to have all 3 of the credit cards that he has on his credit report reporting. It's going to continue to keep his score higher. But,
Okay.
like I said, when he's ready to buy a house, I would look at removing him, but unless, it's a horrible ding to him, I would keep him on there and just prove that I make the payments on that card every month.
Okay. Okay.
But they're also looking for a mix of credit. People don't realize that. They want to see if you've got a car payment, a mortgage payment, credit card payment, like what is the way that you use credit? Because the more that you have in your mix, it's actually better because you're showing that you have the ability to repay everything on time.
Okay, that totally makes sense because I mean, a person isn't just a little piece of something. They're like a big part of a whole bunch of things. So, if you're paying your car payment late, but you're always paying your other stuff, that would would make sense, I guess.
Yeah. And there's some other interesting statistics on there about the national average, women versus men, what their credit scores are like. So if you want to go
Hey,
back.
look at us girls. I did notice that. Look at us girls.
Yes. Can you imagine that it affects some people the way that they want to date them if their credit score isn't high enough?
I've been seeing stuff in the news where people like girls will be like, I want to see your credit score, your bank statement before I'm going to go on a date with you. So I know what's happening. I could do that, but yeah, anyway, maybe I should have done that. Who knows? Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the pre-approval process. Because I mean, like I said earlier at the beginning, the first conversations I have with a prospective buyer is, have you been pre-approved? And if not, I say, hey, you know what? You need to go talk to Kerri because, Kerri is amazing and she's a great lender and she communicates, which I love about Kerri more than anything. And she's professional and she cares about her clients. So, I strongly suggest Kerri. So.
And I can say all the same things about you.
So anyway, so I sent them to Kerri and Kerri, and then what happens?
So I have them fill out an application, look over what they've sent over, making sure they have solid income. But when we pull credit, that's a huge thing because believe it or not, your credit score affects your interest rate for some programs, not all. I don't want to be lumped into one thing because certain loan types like VA, unless your credit's below 620, it doesn't really affect your credit score. But for most other programs, the higher your credit score is, the better it is for you and your interest rate.
So I was watching somebody on a YouTube channel or whatever, and they said, hey, go check out this thing on Google, and you can go to Google and they have like a mortgage calculator. And so I punched in different numbers just to see like, oh, if my credit score was here, what would it be? And if I was here, oh, that's not as good.
Yes. It's true. So people don't realize that.
Yes. And there are tools out there. I mean, it was like, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 kind of percent, but I mean that can add up. So it is really important. And Kerri, I also know in the past you said you're willing to work with potential or people who are going to be potential buyers who maybe don't have the credit score that they need, and you kind of can help them. Like if you do this, then right.
Yes, we can run a simulator. Because of the downturn in the market, we don't have our credit tool department anymore, but I do have reliable resources. But I have something within our credit pulling system where I can run what's called a simulator that will show if we want to increase it by 20 points, you need to do this, this, and this, and in this period of time. And then we would just do a rapid rescore once those things have been completed.
Okay. That's good. And so you can always get ideas though. I mean, as far as how to improve that to try to get a better rate. And sometimes it's easy stuff too, right?
It is. It might just be the credit card. Yeah, because we talked about utilization being a huge thing. So you might just be $40 away from hitting the prime spot for your utilization of your credit card. So if you're able to pay it down by $40, that could boost your credit score by like 20 points. So definitely we look at ways that would increase it the most in the shortest period of time with the least amount of money.
So, and to pre-approvals too. I mean, like I said, that you're one of the first things I tell people to do is like, go talk to a lender because, you really, really need to have that information. And, when you're going to put in an offer and if you don't have your pre-approval, you can't get the house usually because the seller's going to say, how do I know this person's legit? Right. So
yeah. It's like throwing spaghetti to the wall and making sure it sticks.
Right. So, I think I would take out a person like a buyer maybe once or twice just to kind of get I feel for what they're looking for and stuff like that. But I even don't even like to do that. I mean, technically, when you go look at somebody's house, you're supposed to be pre-qualified or pre-approved, at least pre-qualified and hopefully pre-approved.
Yes.
And there's a difference. And we've talked about that before in the past. So I'm not going to go into that. But, sometimes I do it just to see kind of like, let's get a feel for what you're looking for. And it's more to help me out as far as, figuring it out. But, the other thing I was talking about to another potential buyer is that, it's important to know what your numbers are too, because I don't want to show you a bunch of stuff way, way, way over your, what you can afford. And then you go, oh, I don't like any of these houses in my price range, so you don't want to be in that situation either. So there's that's really important because otherwise you get deflated before you start sometimes. And so it's really important to know your numbers. And then the other thing I tell my buyers too, is that it's also really important to have some really serious and, in-depth conversations with your lender as far as like, you might get approved for like, let's say 600,000, but you may only want to spend 500,000. Your payments are in that comfortable 500 or below range. And so that's where you want to stay at and so you don't want to come and say, hey, broker, I can go to 600 because, you're going to get your payments are going to be more. You're going to pay to me. And I don't want that. So I'd rather have
that because I was at Cash and Kerri yesterday buying a few things and the gal at the register was talking to her customer and her coworkers stating how she's never going to be able to buy a house. And that's, of course, when I chime in and say, don't say that. There's hope out there, just do my little spiel. But one thing that I left them with is, yes, because she said somebody had just pre-approved her for more than what her previous lender had. And she said, but yeah, the payment is just way too much. And I said, well, then you're not working with the right lender. You need to have somebody that is going to ask you first, where are you comfortable payment wise? And that's where we're going to work from. Yep. And often, most times, it's not where people want to be for the price point. And there is usually wiggle room. But if you start out at the lower end and show them this is what you would be pre-approved for, somehow, some way, people make the little bit higher work. So
right. And and I tell them that I said, you might be approved for higher, and that's okay. That I don't really need to know that until it's time to put an offer, and then I'll need to see it from the lender. But if you want to show me houses, because everybody has Zillow and everybody has Redfin or wherever, or, Realtor. They've got all these different sites that you can go to look up houses and stuff like that. So you can always send me something and say, hey, this is a little bit above what I want, but I would like to go see it. And as long as the lender says yes, that's doable for them. It's over there what they wanted to, but I'll show it to you. But anyway, I always try to make sure that that's really clear, is to stay within your range and get that pre-approval amount so you know what you're doing. All right, Kerri, continue on. Sorry, we got a little off track there.
That's okay. We could go to the next slide because I think we covered all of that. So here's another thing why pre-approvals matter. It helps your home buying process. We've already really gone over that. Most people don't want to even talk to you if you haven't been pre-approved.
Nope.
Look at the next one. Fair. Avoid embarrassing rejections. Can you imagine thinking that you can afford something and then all of a sudden you're told that you can't? That would be
Kerri, I've been hearing on this real estate group forum that I'm at, that there's people getting all the way to the end and then the lender will say, oh, sorry, you can't do it. And sometimes it wasn't because they went shopping either, like what we talked about, spending over Christmas and stuff. It wasn't that. It was just there was a mistake or whatever happened, and it wasn't like they were not fully underwritten. So it didn't work. And I would hate to be in that position because you could lose earnest money, I guess, right? I think
you could. You absolutely could, unless I believe there's a clause in there that you can put it or like an amendment.
Yeah,
to make sure that they can secure their earnest money.
But if you also get past a certain point, it might be too late. Like, I mean, these people are like 2 or 3 days from closing, so I'm sure
and it could be that you would have to pay for the appraisal, which has already been completed. So that's another usually $900 that you'd be out. So it drives me crazy. I just spoke to somebody the other day that they've been looking since April, and they were working with a lender, and they kept on giving them changing information, and it was very frustrating for them. So, and at the end of the day, they were basically, oh, we couldn't go this way because the underwriter said this. It's like, well, how did we get this far and not know this? So
that is a program you guys have, correct, Kerri?
Yeah, we have a program called Fairway Advantage where we will completely underwrite your file before you even go home shopping at all. That way we know with confidence that the underwriter said everything in this file is good as long as it stays this way, as long as there's no change in income, no change in the amount of debt that you carry, unless it's lower. That's always better. But it makes it so that by the time you're going under contract, all we have to do is get an insurance binder, order title and escrow to be in your name, and get the appraisal ordered. So we can close in 7 to 14 days.
And that's really all you guys need at that point once you're totally underwritten. And that's the best approval you can get out there. So if you guys can get that as buyers, happy Kerri, she can do that for you. But
yes, it is a legally binding letter that we send out. It's put out by our legal department, and it's almost as good as cash.
Right. And pretty much all you need then at that point is an address. I mean, you've got everything else as far as the lender, and all you need is the address and, like she said, the title and insurance. So there you go.
Correct.
So, okay. All right.
So you can get that dream home faster by having a good, solid pre-approval, and even faster if you have
great time frame.
Yeah.
And that matters sometimes when you put in offers too. We were just talking about that earlier too before we came on, is that, I mean, the price obviously is, what most sellers look at, but it's not always. Sometimes it's like, I really need to sell it by this date because I need to be able to fund my house because I'm moving into this next house, or, I need to be starting a job, or whatever the reason is. But, that timeline is another really important contingency, and or not contingency, but a factor, an offer term that it's really important. So
definitely. And it is and the word contingency comes into that because most sellers are contingent on the sale of the purchase of their next home, depending on the sale of their current home. So if they can tell when they're ready to put an offer on a home, if they know that they can close in 14 days, it's going to make it easier process for them to purchase their next home too.
Absolutely. Okay. Anything else?
I think not on that one. And I think we kind of covered some of what the next slides say, but we did really talk about how different loan programs have different credit score requirements. So it's just really talking to your lender and seeing what is going to be the best fit for you. And there might be a program that's better than what you thought that was a good fit for you. What you've heard might be good for you. Mm-hmm. So one thing that we talked about is, because rates are starting to go down, the market's going to become more competitive, and sellers might be asking for credit scores and credit worthiness, just to say, I want to make sure that the person who puts an offer on this house is going to be solid. I don't want anything to fall through. I don't want anything to go wrong because I have 10 offers on this house. I want to pick the best one.
Right. And, and I get back in that group that I'm at, that network group I'm in too. That's something else we talked about. And, there's, when you're selling your home, you are, for showings and stuff, you're leaving your home, especially if you're still owner occupied and you're leaving your home. You may have trying to be getting ready for stuff. You're really giving a lot to get out of there. And then to have that fail and then have to put it back on the market and go through that process again and have, and to keep stepping out of your home for people to come in and look at your home and go through this process again, it's very time consuming.
It is.
And, so it is, it's really getting the best financing. And, again, that's why I said, talk to a lender. Don't get pre-qualified, guys. It really is not worth anything. The pre-qualification isn't. I know that they give them out like candy almost, but it's the pre-approval. And if you can get underwritten pre-approval, that's amazing. So
sometimes I want to ask, what's a pre-qualification? Is there such a thing? I'd rather do a pre-approval. I want to see your documentation. I want you to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah. We would need to see the finances. We need to know what it is. And, I don't think this is on the screens, but you need W-2s. You need
of pay stubs, 60 days of bank statements, photo ID. Depending on if you already own a home, we would need a mortgage statement and copy of homeowners insurance. If you have investment properties, we would need those same 2 items for your investment properties. Most times we need tax returns. I think the only one right now that we don't need them on is VA. So yeah, and I have a whole checklist that I send over to people.
Perfect. I mean, it doesn't sound like anything that's that difficult to get together. So
Correct.
Anyway, rates are coming down, as we just talked about. Anything else in there before I jump ahead?
No.
Okay, perfect. So, we have one more.
Well, I mean, we could just go over this really quickly. Just make sure that you're monitoring your credit. It's never a bad thing to look at it occasionally and make sure that your scores are where you think that they are, because it will definitely make sure that you are in the right spot when you are ready to move forward. So, yeah.
You can get a free credit report, I think, from each of the 3 things a year, right? One a year, don't you?
Yeah, and there's actually a site called freecreditreport.com that you can go to, and you can get one annually for free.
And it's good to check to make sure nothing's happening to your credit that you're not aware of either. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, because what a lot of people don't realize, one of the statistics on that slide was that there are oftentimes people, I think it was like 41% of people don't realize that there are errors on their credit report, which are affecting their score. So that's always a good thing to look at to make sure that everything is correct on there.
Right. Okay. So like we talked about, the rates are coming down. It's, we're starting to kind of get back into, going through the holiday. We're almost through the holidays. It's crazy. It's already December, but we have 4 more weeks left before the holidays are over and into the new year. And then we're into the spring and people are ready to go shopping. So if this is something that you're looking at doing, as you've got some real estate needs next year, I'm always happy to help. So reach out and talk to me. Again, I highly recommend Kerri. She's a wonderful lender. I can't recommend her highly enough. Definitely reach out to her. You got contact information. If you're seeing us on our channels, send us a message. We both reply to those. Yes. I know. Yes. I'm always responding, so she will too. So reach out, and we'd love to work with you. And thanks for joining us. And I don't have anything else today. Do you?
I don't, but just thank you everybody for tuning in and listening to us. We really appreciate it.
All right. You guys, thank you so much again. And hit that follow, like, or subscribe button. And we will see you next Wednesday at, depending on what time frame, 1:30, 3:30, depending on what time frame you're at. Have a great day.